Coast Business Radio is the home for business from the Gold Coast to Byron Bay and beyond. Whether you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, or just managing your family's assets, the Coast Business Radio podcast can help. Find the resources you need to manage your money, start your latest venture, grow your business, and be able to compete in a global market.
Talking business, nothing but talk. From One Nation on the line is Pauline Hanson. Pauline, welcome to Coast Business Radio.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Mike.
Now, before we get into the serious stuff, even though the kids say this is serious, with social distancing being what it is, will the Easter Bunny be able to deliver eggs?
Well, I hope so. Of course he will. Easter Bunny goes anywhere.
But
don't disillusion me. No coronavirus for the Easter Bunny, okay?
But they're
Easter
not
great. Will deliver eggs.
They're not great at social distancing, are they?
No, they shouldn't be. There has been some leniency somewhere, hasn't there?
Yeah, there has indeed. Now, the coronavirus, the effect on business throughout Australia and Queensland has been absolutely catastrophic. When do you think it's safe to lift restrictions on business?
Well, the government is waiting for this weekend because most people won't be working over the Easter weekend. I think they're going to wait and see how this goes over the weekend, then reassess it and look at maybe relaxing it a little bit. The coronavirus, for people must understand, the government is saying this is at least for 6 months. I think it's going to be longer than that if we can't control it. The SARS that we had in 2003, of course it wasn't in Australia, and the MERS are actually coronaviruses. The MERS was in 2012. They have never found a vaccine for those two viruses. And that's why I think they're going to have difficulty finding a vaccine for it. So hence, if we can actually keep ourselves isolated, get rid of the infections that are happening, they will slowly relax the rules and people will actually be able to go back to work. Businesses will start to open, but we've got to be very tight on immigration, people coming into the country until the rest of the world starts reducing it and we get rid of the virus, because even if the vaccine is found, it will not come into effect for about 1.5 to 2 years because it has to go through a process of human testing.
Which really is interesting if you think about it. If they do relax it, because at the moment we're saying we can't get within that 1.5 metres, 2 metres of each other, and that's why they've closed restaurants and pubs and that sort of thing. If they do relax it, there's always the chance it may just resurface again. Well,
you've got to look at the fact now that people are actually still doing their shopping, going shopping centres, they're doing their shopping in Woolworths. So they've got markers on the floor for people to keep the distance. Most people are keeping the distance and taking precautions with them. And I've noticed a lot of people wearing masks or wearing gloves. People will still be able to do that. If you relax it in these restaurants and different places, do the spacing between the tables, don't overcrowd venues, and they won't bring in going to sporting events and huge crowds of people there. That won't happen. I don't believe that will happen for a long time.
The infringement of civil liberties, I've just seen some things that sort of remind me of what they would do in Russia or in China itself. Drones following people, police booking people for, and I know that they're doing what they believe is right, but it just seems like we're losing everything that we fought for. What's your thoughts on that?
Look, I agree with you. Especially today, now they're setting up barricades for people to ensure that they don't head to the Gold Coast. Now, they're saying if you have more than 2 people in the car, they're going to fine every person in that car. And that's the liberties there of the people. You've got a reason why you're going someplace. I think it's over the top in those cases, and I'm not happy about it. And the case of the woman sitting on a park bench, she's not around anyone, she's sitting on a park bench, and the police officer finds her. That is wrong. Even going to the beach, okay, these beaches were packed. But when you have public transport, buses, trains, that people are packed into it, or shopping centres, hello, people are going to the beach. And actually sunshine is one of the best things that you can get because you need the vitamin D. And I said, tell people. And that was told to me by Professor Ian Brighthope, who said people should be taking high doses of vitamin D and vitamin C to counteract this.
So then what would you suggest? Do you think that we should then open the beaches, that we make sure that we still have the police doing what police do, making sure there are only two people and that social distance between people on the beach? I mean, I sort of see that being more beneficial than saying you must not go to the beach. We're going to shut the car parks. We're going to make it miserable for you. You have to stay home. Whereas we're adults and we act like adults. So why not give us that space on the beach, that 2 meters from each other? You're not doing any more damage than going for a walk. Yet you're getting, as you said, the vitamin D.
Totally agree with you, and that's what I have been saying, because people need that exercise. If you shut people up in their units into the houses, especially with children around, because a lot of parents are fearful of sending their kids to school or to childcare centres, because that's where they pick up a lot of viruses and diseases and coughs and colds, very much so in childcare centres. So I believe that it's good for people to go out and get that exercise, get out of the house. They need to do it, otherwise they're going to go mad. The kids, I'll tell you what, if I had my 4 kids constantly day in, day out, I'd go mad. I couldn't stand it.
Well, they'd be working much harder, I would imagine, too. My dad always said from the bush, there's loads to be lifted.
Oh, look, I totally agree with you. Kids, you've got to give them chores, and that's the problem with the kids these days. Everything's done for them. So anyway, we're not getting into that one. I've got another opinion on that one.
Okay, we'll leave that one alone for next time. But look, the Chinese, you're a critic of the Chinese with the Belt and Road Initiative. Anthony Bergen writes in the Australian November 3, 2019, the Chinese are weaponising federalism by driving a political wedge between the federal and state positions on the Belt and Road Initiative. That's the conclusion to be drawn from Daniel Andrews' recent announcement that Victoria has struck a new deal with China under the BRI. Andrews signed an agreement with China's National Development and Reform Commission that will focus on infrastructure, innovation, and trade development and market access. Now, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, are we being taken over by the Chinese? They own everything at the moment, it seems.
We are most definitely being taken over by the Chinese, and it's happened for many, many years. Daniel Andrews is a bloody fool to actually go into the Belt and Road with the Chinese government, and actually under that agreement they want to bring out their own workers, and so hence Australians won't get the jobs. They've done it around the world in other countries, and they've got it happening in South Africa. You've got the islands that we have, the Pacific Islands, and I know that I went over to Greece just recently on a delegation, and in Greece they're trying to buy up everything they possibly can in Greece. Greece said to me, no, it's not going to happen. Apparently I've heard, yes, they are. And they're looking at buying up the port in Greece. They actually took over in Sri Lanka, the ports and airport in Sri Lanka as well. So it's happening around the world. China wants to be the powerhouse of the world. They want to be the leading nation, and we've allowed it to happen. Stupid governments have opened up our free trade to them. We've brought in their cheap rubbish. We've destroyed our own industries and manufacturing. And I have been actually speaking out against this since years ago, in 1996 when I was first elected to Parliament, because I could see the writing on the wall. Now's the time, and I think it's a wake-up call, not only for Australia but the rest of the world, that we now have to say, hang on, enough's enough. We have got to stop being so dependent on China or any other nation and look at ourselves and start our own industries and manufacturing and to become self-sufficient and start making the things that we need in this country to survive in a crisis. Just to let you know what China has bought, and of course we all know what infrastructure they have bought up. But what's very important, and this is what I've been saying about water, China actually owns, our surface water. Okay, I'll speak about Queensland. 19.3% of our surface water is foreign-owned and 11% of our underground water. In total, 19.1% in total for Australia's groundwater and surface water is foreign owned, and 10.4%, that's in Queensland, and 10.4% is foreign owned groundwater Australia wide. So, and again, in your residential housing, 91% of all approvals by FIRB in the residential, that's 2017-18, 51 billion. China bought up 23%. That is 26.6 billion. So China's been buying up a lot of residential houses in Australia as well, which actually inflates the price of housing in Australia and puts it out of the reach of many Australians to own their own house.
Many would say then that's an invasion by stealth.
It is, and it has been allowed to happen. Yes, it is. See, this is why I complained to the government about now there could be a fire sale on, and a lot of people who are forced to sell their homes or their businesses will be bought up by foreign investment. See, people understand that foreign investment, okay, fair enough, but people get angry, Australians get angry when it's foreign ownership. When you sell your essential services to a business or company or a foreign government, they're not buying it because they like you. They're buying it to actually control you or to make profits out of it. And shareholders want profits out of the business. So your essential services, your gas, your water, electricity, and your telecommunications should always be in the hands of the government for the people to be run at a cost that will cover maintenance, but at a cost that is reasonable to the people, not to make huge profits out of it. And we've seen the sale of our essential services go to foreign investors, and look at our electricity. The prices are skyrocketing. Mm-hmm. Our water is foreign owned. Water prices are skyrocketed where the farmers can't afford to buy the water any longer. And unless we actually build the infrastructure, as I want to do with the hybrid Bradfield scheme, to build that and bring the water inland to Australia, we are going to be in destitute. We will never address the droughts that we have. We will never open this country to produce the food that we need for our own needs, plus also to export.
And I suppose now really is a wake-up call, but we really didn't need this sort of wake-up call because it's just far too severe. Look, just back to the coronavirus in China. I mean, I see that the British government, the UK, is going to, there's word that they may be suing China for $6.5 trillion. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, should China be accountable for the coronavirus and what's happening?
Yes, they should be. You see, China knew they had the coronavirus last December, and actually they warned the doctors who wanted to tell people the coronavirus was there, but they shut them down. So they allowed this to go on without forewarning the world. A lot of the Chinese, sorry, Mike, a lot of the Chinese actually went to Italy, northern Italy, for the ski season, and that's why the infection was very rampant in Italy. And of course, when these countries, Italians are an older population, and that's where it's affected them a lot more than what it has in Australia. But I think they should be held responsible for it, and the whole world. I think the world's angry with it. There's going to be a backlash from the governments around the world towards China with regards to this.
How do you see when we come out of it? I mean, and they could take, as you said, 18 months because there is no vaccine right now, so we've got to really just try and manage it. But when we finally get out of it, how do you see the economy? I'm sure there's going to be probably a honeymoon period, the joys and celebrations of being able to give your mate a high five or a handshake or whatever. But take away that honeymoon, we've got to repay the money back, don't we?
How I see the economy was, although they say for the last 30 years we've actually been travelling really well, and we've just had our AAA rating endorsed again for Australia. I believe Australia was on a slide that we were going to have a bit of an economic crisis in Australia. As I've travelled around Australia, and I spoke to a lot of industries and manufacturing, they're actually just hanging on because a lot of them were being forced out of business due to rising electricity costs, rent prices, cost of living, and they were struggling. And when I went to these small towns and different places, not even small towns, shops were closing, quite a number of shops. So that was a clear indication that the economy wasn't doing real well. The government has, over the years, propped up the economy by bringing in high immigration numbers. Their percentage of immigration to the GDP was basically 1.7% was due to immigration, which propped up the economy. Now, that's why I think the government needed to pull back on that. You can't have equivalent to one Canberra coming into the country every year. And we were just, it was a Ponzi scheme. Immigration had to be pulled back. So out of this, the government is propping up the economy now by paying the workers JobKeeper and JobSeeker, which I agree with. But as we come out of this, we need then to look at infrastructure projects which will keep the economy going with jobs, but also provide the infrastructure that we need to take us further into the future. We can't just look at 12 months down the track. We've got to look at the long-term vision for the nation, as in building the pipeline from the west coast for the gas. So if we're not going to go nuclear and you want to shut down the power stations, we've got to have an economy where we can produce cheap power to run the industries and manufacturing that we need to be encouraging businesses to get into.
One thing that I think has been forgotten, being a bushie from way back, from Victoria of all places, the drought. It seems to be forgotten, but it's still there, isn't it? The rural communities are just doing it so tough. The coronavirus, fires, floods, drought. I mean, why would you want to be on the land?
You know, the people on land, I love the land myself. The people on land, they're a part of it. You know, it's in their blood. And I get it. I understand. And it's been generations, it's a connection to the land. But now the average age of the farmer is about 54, and they're telling their kids, there's no future for you here. You might as well leave. Mm. And then the more farmers that leave the land, that land has then been bought up by foreign ownership. And just to tell you, 25% of our agricultural land in Tasmania and the Northern Territory is foreign owned. So they're buying it up and they're going straight from paddock to plate and exporting food out of the country. So what I'm saying to these people, they are doing it tough, and that's why the government needs to look after the Australians who are prepared to stay on the land, give them tax incentives to actually stay there. And I'm very passionate about that, looking after our rural and regional areas, give them the facilities that they need. It's no good shutting down hospitals. It's no good shutting down schools, taking teachers out. You know, there's no nursing home services. The elderly have to move to the cities to get care and attention. Then the families follow. So this has been ongoing. And if they think that they're going to bring out refugees into the country and stick them into a country town and think that's going to keep it going, they're fools, because it won't happen. And you need the lifeblood of this nation, that people are prepared to get out there and work. They're the salt of the earth. They're the people that we need, because they're the ones that will stay for the long term if we give them the resources that they need to stay on the land.
Pauline Hanson, appreciate your time. All the best. Enjoy Easter.
Thanks, Mike, and to you and your listeners. It is a shame with the coronavirus. It's going to keep a lot of families, apart, and those grandparents who love to see their grandkids find the eggs. But I hope some parents take videos of this and watch the kids run around the yard trying to find the Easter eggs or Easter bunny coming to them. So, happy Easter to everyone, and to you, Mike. Thank you.